picks for week 6. I'm Tony T with our college football pick show here for week 6. Well, this will be part 6 of 6. We have the remainder of the 15 games here for Saturday. Before we get to them, just a couple things. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Free college football picks are updated all season long. Free picks every day from all the major sports. We also have NFL. We have NBA coming up. Major League Baseball. It's a good time to subscribe. And also, if you would support our channel, hit the thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. Then visit Tony'sPicks.com. We're a multi-capper site showcasing top cappers in our industry. Click the link to the hot cappers. Get signed up to long-term passes. You'll see some of our hot cappers like Hollywood Sam. The Morning Steam Show has been pretty hot. We'll take a look at some of our college football numbers, and you'll see guys like Collins, Hot, Hollywood Sam, Ramon. Click the link to the handicapper pages and get signed up to a long-term pass. You'll find our premium picks at the top page. Drop-down menu here with our free picks. As you scroll, you will see that we have our best bets here. Each capper can designate one premium pick per sport per day as a best bet. It has to really stand out on the card to be a best bet. You can see many of the cappers have that up there. They can also designate one of their premium picks as a $15 premium pick to showcase their service to you, and you'll see many of the cappers are using a best bet to do that. And of course, 3-packs are best value right there on our site. A 3-pack here, all of course, profit guarantee. Must turn a profit or the amount you purchase is credit back to your account. That's profit guarantee. Also, make note of our promo code. You can save 20% off all premium pick packages. When you use that promo code TonyT at checkout, you can access our page here by clicking the link in the description. Then you would click the All Cappers tab to get signed up. And of course, we'd love to hear from you guys, so post your picks in the comments below. All right, let's go ahead. Let's get this one started. James Madison versus Arkansas State college football pick here for Saturday. James Madison, they're now 4-0 after their 40-13 home win at Texas State Dukes. Good offensive performance, 460 yards. They limited the Bobcats' run game and held them just 140 passing yards on 27 attempts. Quarterback Todd Centeio completed 60% of his passes with a pick, over 10 yards per pass attempt. Centeio on the season completing 62% of his passes, 11 touchdowns, 1 pick, 8.8 yards per pass attempt. He is a threat to run, averaging 6.3 yards a carry with 11 attempts a game. Arkansas State 2-3 after their 45-28 home win to UL Monroe. Red Wolves held the Warhawks to 290 yards, 130 of it passing on 20 attempts. Florida State transfer James Blackman is completing 78% of his passes in that win with 2 touchdowns and nearly 8 yards per attempt. Dukes in their lone road game put up 376 yards on App State in their win, but ran for only 3.7 yards per attempt. Red Wolves have covered all games this season, have defended well at home. The play here will be on Arkansas State here at plus the 11. Washington State and USC college football pick here for Saturday. Washington State improved to 4-1 with their 28-9 home win to Cal. Strong defensive performance by the Cougars, holding the Golden Bears to 31 rushing yards on 24 carries. Washington State's run game sputtered, though, only 72 yards on 25 carries. Incarnate Word transfer quarterback Cameron Ward did complete 67% of his passes, 8.6 yards per pass attempt. He had 3 touchdown passes, but 2 picks. He's thrown 2 interceptions in 3 of his past 4 games per game. USC 5-0 after their 42-25 home win to Arizona State, but didn't cover that 24.5-point spread. Trojans, a better offensive performance than when they scored 17 at Oregon State. They failed to cover really because they gave up 243 yards passing on 32 attempts to the Sun Devils. Now, quarterback Caleb Williams did complete 70% of his passes in the win. He had 3 touchdowns, a pick, and 9.4 yards per attempt here on the season. Williams, 67% completion rate, nearly 9 yards per attempt. The Cougars' road offensive performance poor with only 253 yards a game. Trojans' offense has been outstanding at home. But Cameron Ward's interception issue is huge here. The play will be USC minus 12. Clemson versus Boston College football pick Saturday. Clemson moves to 5-0 after the 30-20 home win to NC State. Clemson covered behind a strong defensive performance, holding the Wolfpack at 279 yards, shutting down both run and pass. Quarterback DJ Uiagalelei completed 70% of his passes with a touchdown and 7 yards per pass attempt. On the season, the Tigers signal caller is completing 65% of his throws, 7.8 yards per attempt. Now, Boston College 2-3, a 34-33 home win to Louisville. Season high 454 yards gained in that win. They did limit Louisville defensively to run and pass. Notre Dame transfer quarterback Phil Jurkovec completed over 85% of his passes in the game, 3 touchdowns, a pick, 14.5 yards per pass attempt. On the season, Jurkovec 64% completions, 7.6 per attempt. They didn't win despite a -2 turnover margin. BC running poorly this year, 2.5 yards a carry and allowing 3 sacks a game. Tigers in a recent road game did give up 311 passing yards at Wake Forest. Eagles not a consistent enough offense to replicate last week's performance. The run game isn't helping Jurkovec, and he's getting sacked a lot. The play will be Clemson -20.5. Kansas State versus Iowa State college football pick Saturday. Kansas State moves to 4-1 after their 37-28 home win at Texas Tech. Wildcats clobbered the Red Raiders on the ground, 343 rushing yards on 39 carries. They did give up 359 yards passing on only 48 attempts. Wildcats had a +3 turnover margin. Quarterback Adrian Martinez completed 63% of his passes, a touchdown, 6.1 yards per attempt. Martinez ran for 171 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 3 picks on 72 rushing attempts. He has avoided the injury bug, which has hampered his three seasons at Nebraska. Iowa State fell to 3-2 with their 14-11 road defeat at Kansas. Offense produced only 313 yards, just 26 rushing yards on 30 carries. Cyclones offensively held the Jayhawks to only 213 yards. Quarterback Hunter Deckers, a season-low 62% completion rate, 6 yards per attempt. He was sacked 5 times on the year. Deckers completing 69% of his passes, 11 touchdowns, 6 picks, 7 yards per pass attempt. Cyclones defense outstanding this season. Wildcats in their road game gave up 550 yards to Oklahoma, but still managed to win that game. Cyclones playing the better defense, and they're at home here. The play here will be Iowa State plus the 1.5. BYU versus Notre Dame college football pick Saturday. BYU improved to 4-1 after their 38-26 home win to Utah State. Cougars' run game generated 4 yards a carry. They limited the Aggies' ground game to just over 4 yards a carry as well. Quarterback Jaron Hall did complete 63% of his passes in the win with 3 touchdowns and 10 yards per attempt. On the season, Hall is completing 70% of his passes, 12 touchdowns, a pick, 8.4 yards per attempt. At Notre Dame, they're 2-2 with their 45-32 road win at North Carolina. Fighting Irish moved the football for 576 yards in the win. The run game came through with 287 yards on 51 carries. They did limit the Tar Heels a run game, but allowed 301 passing yards on 32 attempts. Drew Pine did complete 70% of his passes, 3 touchdowns, 8.5 yards per pass attempt. On the season, Pine about 70% completion rate, 7.3 yards per attempt. The game will be played in Las Vegas on a fast playing surface. Cougars couldn't match the physical play and speed of Oregon on the road in their 41-20 defeat, giving up 439 yards. The play here will be Notre Dame -3.5. South Carolina versus Kentucky college football pick Saturday. South Carolina improved here to 3-2 after their 50-10 home win to FCS school South Carolina State. They rolled up 404 yards on that FCS opponent. They limited the Bulldogs to only 222 yards for the game. Now, quarterback Spencer Rattler on the season completing 65% of his passes, 4 touchdowns, 7 picks, 7.4 yards per attempt. Kentucky fell to 4-1. It was their 22-19 road defeat at Ole Miss. A botched field goal attempt in the closing seconds was costly in defeat. Wildcats offense produced 328 yards, struggling really on the ground for 108 yards on 37 carries. On defense, they gave up 399 yards here to the Rebels, 186 of them on the ground on 39 carries. Correct. Will Levis completed 75% of his passes in the game, 2 touchdowns and 9.2 yards per attempt. Now Levis on the season, 69% completions, 10 yards per attempt. Signal caller was questionable with an undisclosed injury. Sophomore Kaya Sharon is the backup, and the sophomore has attempted 2 passes in his college career. With Levis' injury, would expect the Wildcats to keep the ball on the ground, and with ball control, Kentucky defense has performed well to play here. Kentucky and South Carolina under 46.5. Iowa versus Illinois college football pick. This is on Saturday. Iowa drops at 3-2 after their 27-14 home defeat to Michigan. Another poor offensive performance here by the Hawkeyes. It shut out for the first 3 quarters. They finished the game with 281 yards, 35 rushing on 24 carries. Iowa defended well, limited Michigan to 329 yards. Quarterback Spencer Petras completed 68% of his passes in defeat with the touchdowns and 7.9 yards per attempt. Completion rate, a season high in that game. Now, on the year, Petras 55% completion, 6.2 yards per attempt. Now, Illinois, they're 4-1 after their 34-10 road win at Wisconsin. Big defensive performance by Fine Illini, holding the batters to only 208 yards with 2 yards rushing on 24 carries. Illinois ran heavily in the game, 137 yards on 42 carries. They did benefit by a +3 turnover margin. Syracuse transfer quarterback Tommy DeVito completed 75% of his passes in the win, 7 yards per attempt. Now on the season, the signal caller is at 70% completion, 7.3 yards per attempt. Now these are both these defenses are putting up outstanding numbers, stopping the run and allowing less than 3 yards per attempt there. In doing so, Petrus improvement though is a key. The player will be Iowa State here in this one. Sorry, not Iowa State. The play here will be on Iowa here. It's a Big Ten game. Iowa here at +4. Army versus Wake Forest college football pick Saturday. Army drops to 1-3 after the 31-14 home defeat to Georgia State. Black Knights averaged 5 yards a carry, rushing for 354 yards on 69 carries in that one. Now Army, they struggled in run defense with the Panthers running as they gave up 399 yards on 46 carries. Black Knights rotated quarterbacks and Tyler and Cade Ballard. They combined for only 8 passes, completing one of them last week. Now Wake Forest are 4-1 after the 31-21 road win at Florida State. They finished with 405 yards, 171 of them rushing on 51 carries. Defensively, the Demon Deacons did give up 281 yards passing on 35 attempts. Quarterback here, Sam Hartman, is completing 65% of his passes in that win. 2 touchdowns, 6.9 yards per attempt. Hartman on the season, a career 62% completion rate, 8.9 yards per attempt. Now, Wake Forest doing a good job in run defense. Army pass defense a concern here. The play here will be Wake Forest at -16.5. Coastal Carolina versus UL Monroe college football pick Saturday. Coastal Carolina moved to 5-0 after a 34-30 home win to Georgia Southern. Chanticleers moved the football for 485 yards, rushing for 150 on 31 carries. They did give up 462 yards to the Eagles with 178 rushing on 31 carries and 284 yards passing on 43 attempts. Quarterback Grayson McCall did complete 67% of his passes in the win, about 10 yards per attempt. He has thrown for 3 touchdowns in 4 of his past 5 games. UL Monroe 2-3 after a 45-28 road defeat at Arkansas State. Warhawks offense only 290 yards in defeat. They did run the game. The ground game generated 152 yards on 37 carries. They defended well enough, but allowed 254 passing yards on 33 attempts. Now, quarterback Chandler Rogers completing 60% of his passes in the loss, 2 touchdowns, 6.9 per attempt. Now looking at his season-wide numbers, 64% completions, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks, 7.1 yards per attempt. UL Monroe defending the run well, and Coastal Carolina's pass defense a concern. Warhawks in their FBS home game was able to move the ball on Louisiana and win that game. The play here will be UL Monroe plus the 13. Florida State versus NC State college football pick Saturday. Florida State 4-1 after a 31-21 home defeat to Wake Forest. Seminoles' run game held to 112 yards on 28 carries. On defense, they limited the Demon Deacons to over 3 yards a carry on the ground and surrendered 234 passing yards. Quarterback Jordan Travis completed 66% of his passes in defeat with 3 touchdowns and 8 yards per attempt. On the season, Travis 66% completions, 8 touchdowns, 1 pick, 9.8 yards per attempt. NC State, they fell to 4-1 with their 30-20 road defeat at Clemson. Wolfpack was held to only 279 yards in the game, 34 rushing on 21 carries. They did contain the run and allowed 209 yards passing on 30 attempts. Quarterback Devin Leary completing 59% of his passes, a season low 5.2 yards per attempt. On the year, Leary 63% completion rate, 6.6 yards per attempt, down considerably here the past 2 seasons. FSU passing attack superior, but NC State's defense has been good this season. But here will be the play. It will be Florida State at plus 3.5. Texas A&M and Alabama college football pick. This one's on Saturday. Texas A&M fell to 3-2 after their 42-24 road defeat at Mississippi State. Aggies ran for over 4 yards carrying the game. The team struggled in pass defense, in rush defense, allowing 329 yards on 45 attempts. And that was the pass defense he struggled in. Max Johnson, though, is out here in this one. Haynes King returns after his benching. In a relief role last week, completed only 46% of his throws for 2.8 yards per pass attempt. In his FBS games, King averaging only 4.4 yards per attempt. Alabama 5-0. They get the win at 49-26 at Arkansas. Covered that one. Crimson Tide offense, 555 yards, running for 317 on 42 carries. Crimson Tide allowed 190 yards passing on 34 attempts. Now, Bryce Young exited last week's game with a shoulder injury, game time decision. Backup Jalen Monroe in a relief role threw only 9 passes, 44% completion rate, but ran for 91 yards and 6 touchdowns, including a big play touchdown. Possibly 2 backups under center here. Not confident in King to generate points against this Alabama defense to play here. Texas A&M and Alabama under 48.5. Oregon versus Arizona college football pick Saturday. Oregon improved to 4-1 with their 45-27 home win to Stanford. Ducks offense rolled up 515 yards in the win, running for 315 yards on 37 carries. Oregon did limit the Stanford's run game here to 127 yards on 34 carries. Quarterback Bo Nix, a season low here, 55% completion rate, 5.6 yards per attempt, and 2 touchdowns. He ran 6 times for 141 yards and 2 touchdowns on the season. Nix, his first career, 69% completion, 7.8 yards per attempt. Arizona, they're now 3-2. They get the 43-20 home win to Colorado here. Wildcats, a season high, 673 yards, 178 rushing on 34 carries. They did surrender over 5 yards a carry to the Buffs. Quarterback Jaden DeLara, a season high, 72% completion rate in the win, 6 touchdowns and 10.5 yards per attempt. Wildcats surrendering 5.9 yards a carry on the ground and 65% completion rate. Oregon, of course, the pass defense here. When you look here at Oregon, that is definitely has been an issue here. Giving up 282 yards, 69% completion rate, 7.5 yards per attempt. 2 quarterbacks here in good form with good offenses behind them. Play here, Oregon and Arizona over 70.5. Fresno State versus Boise State college football pick Saturday. Fresno State fell to 1-3 after their 19-14 road defeat at UConn. Bulldogs offense, a poor performance, only 187 yards. They did limit the Huskies to only 313 yards. Fresno State starting quarterback Jake Haener is out. Logan Fife did complete 72% of his passes in the loss. 2 touchdowns, 7.1 yards per attempt. Bulldogs only 30 yards rushing on 26 carries. Boise State 3-2 with their 35-13 home win to San Diego State. Broncos recovered from a halftime deficit, and they ran for 316 yards on 44 carries for the game. They held the Aztecs to just 114 yards with 33 passing. Quarterback Taylor Green hit on 50% of his passes, 4.8 yards per rush. A running style quarterback who rushed for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. This is back-to-back road games here without a bye for the Bulldogs after a long trip to UConn. With an experienced quarterback, the Broncos will stack up the line and force third and long situations. Running style quarterback adds a wrinkle here to the prep for the Bulldogs. The defense play here, Boise State minus 7.5. Hawaii versus San Diego State college football pick Saturday. Hawaii fell to 1-4 after their 45-25 road defeat at New Mexico State Aggies. A season high 411 yards gained by the Rainbows in defeat. Defense was crushed on the ground as they gave up 357 yards on 45 carries. Quarterback Joey Yellen completed a season high 65% of his passes, only 4.3 yards per attempt. On the season, Yellen 46% completions, 3.7 per attempt. San Diego State 2-3 with their 35-13 road defeat at Boise State. A dreadful offensive performance by the Aztecs, just 114 yards. They struggled defending the dual threat quarterback, surrendered 316 yards on 44 carries. Quarterback Braxton Burmeister completed 25% of his passes, 4.1 yards per attempt. He left the game here with a head injury in the Boise State loss, but expected to play. Burmeister on the season, completing 50% of his passes, 3.7 yards per attempt. That was way down from last 2 seasons at Georgia. At Virginia Tech, I should say. San Diego State will take the game plan that New Mexico State had, and that was just run the ball and play defense. Play here, Hawaii and San Diego State under 58.5. Oregon State versus Stanford college football pick Saturday. Oregon State 3-2 after their 42-16 road defeat at Utah. Beavers did run the ball for 171 yards on 37 carries. Defensively, though, they gave 162 rushing yards. This was on 31 carries. Oregon State had a -4 turnover margin with 4 picks. Starting quarterback Chance Nolan out with a neck injury. He throws a lot of picks for them. Backup Tristan Gebbia did not play last season. It'll be Gannon Grubinson completing 57% of the pass at Utah, 8.4 yards per pass attempt. Stanford 1-3 after their 45-27 road defeat at Oregon. Cardinal defense was crushed here in this one. It was a crushing here by the Beavers defense. They got crushed. Gave up a lot of yardage to Penn State in this one. Now Oregon here, they are now only one loss on this season. Oregon State, I should say. Get this right here. Oregon State. They're 3-2. They lose at Utah 42-16. They ran the ball for about 171 yards on 37 carries. Defensively, they gave 162 yards rushing on 31 carries. A -4 turnover margin. Now, Chance Nolan's out with a neck injury. The backup, Tristan Gebbia, did not play. Ben Gilbertson is completing 57% of his passes, 8.4 yards per attempt. For Stanford, they're just 1-3. They lose 45-27 on the road at Oregon. Cardinal defense was crushed on the ground, gave up 351 yards rushing on 37 carries, and really struggling against their running style quarterback as well. Now Stanford, their offense ran for only 127 yards on 34 carries. Quarterback Tanner McKee completed 57% of his passes against Oregon, 5 yards per attempt. Now in the season, McKee 64% completion rate, 8.1 yards per attempt. Oregon State is running for 5 yards a carry, and Stanford giving up 5.9 yards a carry defensively. Now, with the Beavers quarterback situation in flux here, I would expect a high volume of running here from Oregon State to play here. Oregon State and Stanford go under a total of 56. That was our college football pick show here for Saturday. Make sure you guys on our live watch us live. We'll be back in a few minutes here with baseball and more.